Hey everybody, get myself all set here.
Yeah.
Hi all. Lots of familiar faces. So all of you who I know from either current or past classes, a warm welcome. And lots of new names as well. And welcome to all of you. Let me just do a quick check. Aha. So you're here with me, Nancy Scheel, and also with Dr. Lynn Karjala. And we're going to be introducing ourselves in a little bit. Amy Utsman you're not going to see her. We are actually streaming live to YouTube tonight. So she's hanging out with her YouTube crowd and monitoring the comments and being responsive. And if the YouTube folks have questions, Amy will help get them to me, and then I will share them with Lynn and we'll be able to answer. So first off, we are going to jump right in. If you don't mind, grab pen, paper, pencil, something, use your computer. We're going to ask you to do just a brief little reflection. Our idea tonight is to give you the feel of the kind of vibe that we have in the group, not in our classes, actually all the whole medium classes, but in particularly the group coaching with, I'm going to refer to her as Lynn tonight, Dr. Lynn Karjala. So it's very interactive. So here's what I would like you to think about and jot down. Now, don't write a book. No books, guys. Think about the inner negative, judgy voice in your head. Now, those of you who've been in some of our classes, we refer to this as the critical voice, thanks to Lynn's work. She's the one that named the critical voice and just described it. So jot down, what does that naggy, judgy, critical voice in your head cause you to do or prevent you from doing? And this could be in the intuitive space. It could be mediumship specifically, but it could also be life or work. Because as we'll be, talking about, critical voice is kind of omnipresent. So whatever comes up for you, and don't write a book, just jot down a few things. Example, does it make you feel like you're not good enough? Does it cause you to be indecisive maybe, or procrastinate? Does it cause you to do a lot of people pleasing? Does it maybe keep you from pursuing things that you really want to do, including, stuff in the intuitive space or intuitive world? So just take a moment and jot those down. If you're still not sure, just think about any recurring issues, life, work, relationships, those issues that just keep coming back at you and won't leave you alone. So just jot those down. So thank you for doing that. And if you're not done, you can certainly continue to write while I introduce myself, and Lynn's going to introduce herself. So I am, for those of you who've not met me, my name is Nancy Scheel, and I've been a coach since 2005. I had a long corporate career as well in training and development and communications. And I'm also with Amy Utsman, the co-founder of Whole Medium Academy. So I bring all of that. And a little bit later on, we'll be telling you about Lynn's and my group coaching. And so I particularly bring my coaching expertise to that particular offering. Lynn, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Nancy. My name is Lynn Karjala. I'm a psychologist and author. And as Nancy mentioned, a lot of what we're going to be talking about tonight are concepts that I have developed over about 30 years as a trauma specialist and thousands of hours of working with patients on all kinds of trauma, not only the great big ones, but the little everyday ones as well. And that's what gave rise to my concept of the critical voice.
Wonderful. So just a quick note about how Lynn and I came to be doing this together. So I've known Lynn, sorry, Amy's asking if we're recording. Yes, we are. So I've known Lynn, I don't know, what has it been? At least 4 or 5 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and I didn't know anything about this particular methodology at the time that I met Lynn. And ultimately, I joined, she was doing a live training right here in Roswell. We both live in Roswell, Georgia. And then the pandemic hit, and then everything stopped. And then something like a year or 18 months later, the training finished online. And then I decided to go for the certification because I really liked the method and I needed a mentor. So guess who I picked? That's right. And quite a bit of time later, we decided to join forces. I with my coaching, Lynn with her trauma specialist background, therapy background, and of course the subject matter expertise. So that's what you're getting today. And Amy is in YouTube, for those of you who weren't on when I said that. She's hanging out with the YouTube live group. All right. So what we want to do today is give you some ideas for taking control of that inner negative critical voice. We're going to have some time to tell you about what it is and where it comes from. We are going to do some Q&A, but we're also, before Q&A, Lynn actually is going to step you through a particular mind-body technique. And some of you who've been in our classes, you may recognize some of this. What I'm going to say to you is, this has been my experience, because what has it been now, 4, 5, 6 years? Every time I come back to learning about the critical voice, and quite frankly, anytime Lynn opens her mouth, but that's another story, I end up getting a deeper understanding. So first it's kind of a superficial understanding. Yeah, we have this critical voice, but then the more I hear. So listen with fresh ears. If you've heard some of this before, listen for something that you didn't hear maybe the first time. All right. Oops, that's not what I want. What did you guys write down? I do not want the music again. All right, let's take a look, see if any of these things are familiar. So what I'm putting up here is just a sort of quick and dirty checklist of many of the types of either behaviors or feelings that we often have as a result of that inner judgy negative voice. So low confidence, people pleasing, fear of using your intuition, maybe, or fear of your intuition. We get that a lot with our just flat out afraid that I even have this capability. And what is it? Maybe you're saying sorry all the time. You're taking responsibility when it's not even your fault. And somebody out there knows exactly who I'm talking to. Fear of failure. If not everybody has that, I'd be shocked. Creative block, or big one is feeling disconnected from yourself. These are all really, really common. So what would it be like if you could live without all that old baggage? Because that's what it is. That's what this is. It's old baggage, and you don't need it. So take a moment, quick moment, reflect, think of 1 or 2 words. If you didn't have that voice giving you a hard time day in, day out, what would that be like? See what word floats up into your consciousness. And if you feel really brave and you want to put your 1 word in chat, that would be super cool.
Chat.
In chat. Yeah, there's a chat button. My screen is going to look different from yours, but I think it should be down at the bottom. Free. We have 2 frees. That word, I didn't want to lead our witnesses, but that was in my head. Peace, more freedom. Go-getter. Absolutely. Absolutely. This is what it can feel like when we learn how energy, absolutely, more freedom. Everybody's freedom. Freedom with capital letters and exclamation points. Love it, you guys. Wonder and awe. Absolutely. All right. You guys have the idea of this. So what we want to show you tonight is that it really is possible to take control over this voice. Now, obviously, we had life. Thank you, Sarah Lee. Life. We have a bit of time here. We're just going to give you a little bit of a taste. We will later on spend just about 5 minutes telling you about our group coaching, where we really teach you how to do this. But tonight we wanted you to get a feel for who are we and what's it like. So that's what it could be like to live without all that baggage. So you're probably wondering, does Lynn ever get to talk? She does right now.
Thank you. So, as Nancy's been indicating, everyone has limiting beliefs, and everyone, because everyone has what I call everyday trauma, more about that later. Everyone carries difficult emotions such as fear or anxiety or overwhelm or shame or guilt or disappointment. We all have these kinds of difficult beliefs and feelings. And these beliefs and feelings get in the way of doing the things that we want to do, being the people we want to be, and fully expressing ourselves as who we are.
Somebody's doing a little accidental drawing there on the PowerPoint.
Oh, is that me? Oh, shoot. Sorry.
No, I don't think. Oh, maybe it is. Yeah.
Maybe it is. Okay. I'll try to stay off that.
Let me, let's see. How can I quickly release that? Go ahead, Lynn. I'll see if I
okay.
can.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yeah, I saw the, I saw the note, the annotate button, but I was trying to stay away from it. I guess I missed. Sorry.
Okay, let me try just closing this real quick and see if that makes that go away, because otherwise we're going to have that on all our slides. Hang on just
oh,
a
dear.
sec. Oh, it's still there. No, that's my PowerPoint. I have no earthly idea how to get rid of this, you guys. Annotate. Oh, check out the new toolbar. No, I just want it to go away. Oh, now I'm annotating. Oh. Erase, vanishing. Delete. No. Wow. This is funny.
I was trying to see if I could do it from my end, and I don't see a way either.
All right. Well, we are going to forge ahead with that because I don't want to waste more time trying to figure it out. Sorry, guys. Just ignore the lines. All right.
Hit the undo button top left. Somebody said that. Andrea.
And who has the undo button? Whoever. Oh, Lynn, that would be you, maybe. At the top of the screen, edit, undo.
I'm not.
All right, let's move on.
All right,
let's move on. Let me go ahead and put it back up.
I'll see if I can hunt for it when you're talking.
Perfect. Okay.
Okay.
So, did you have a chance to go through that one? I was looking for red lines.
Yeah, no. So we have all tried to deal with this kind of stuff, and we've tried a variety of different approaches. We try to talk ourselves out of it. We try to distract ourselves from it. We try to just push it aside and just barrel through it. And of course, we also shame ourselves and berate ourselves for having all of this and for letting it get in our way. We may get a little respite now and again from these feelings and from these limiting beliefs. But the feelings and the beliefs always come back. These old strategies that we've used all these years, they just don't work, or at least they don't work for very long.
All right, so what is going on here? And why can't you permanently get rid of these feelings and belief? Well, we'd like to introduce you to your critical voice. And for anybody who hasn't been in our classes yet, that might be new. But that's what we're going to be calling this voice, the critical voice. And the good news is that you really can take back control. So today, I'm going to go through a couple things: what your critical voice is and why you have it, a little bit about its characteristics and how it shows up in daily life, and why the first step in controlling it is understanding and recognizing it. And then finally, as we said, a very easy but super useful and impactful mind-body technique to calm yourself and rebalance your energy system. Lynn, I think we'll just live with it. And
Okay.
being there, I think even at this point, I'm not even seeing it anymore. So sorry, guys.
Okay. All right. So let's talk a little bit about this thing that we've been referring to. So what is your critical voice? You have probably experienced it as a kind of an inner judge, except it's not a very fair judge. It's always negative. It's that constantly negative, nagging part of ourselves. Pretty much whenever you experience negative language, negative feelings, negative beliefs, it is almost always coming from the critical voice. There are grief is not mediated by the critical voice, so there are a few feelings that are not critical voice feelings. But if you're thinking or feeling something painful or unpleasant, it's almost always from the critical voice, and it is the source of all resistance in our lives. There are three really important things to remember about the critical voice. Lots more to know, but three really important things to remember. One is that we create the critical voice to be a protector. So it always has a positive purpose. It's always trying to help, no matter how harsh it sounds. The second is that it's born out of trauma. That's why we feel we need a protector. The more unresolved trauma we have, even everyday trauma, the more power we give to what we think is going to protect us. And the third is that the thinking and reasoning of the critical voice, the planning, the solutions it comes up with are all on a very primitive level, because we create it in early childhood, and it tends to stay at about the level of a 4-year-old child. The critical voice shows up in all aspects of our lives. In fact, there are very, very few places it does not show up. So it impacts how you feel about yourself. It impacts how you interact with other people, and especially with your stronger, deeper relationships. It impacts your comfort level and your satisfaction with your job and your own performance on the job. And especially it affects the beliefs you have about what's possible for you now and in the future. So here are some examples of where it can show up. And I'm going to bet that at least some of these are going to be familiar to you. Procrastinating. We avoid tasks that, when we complete them, will bring us greater visibility. And actually, there are other reasons for procrastinating as well, but that's one that people oftentimes don't think of. That you can be afraid of success and creating greater visibility for yourself.
And that's particularly relevant for folks who may be thinking about doing mediumship or psychic studies or anything intuitive. Yeah.
Another example, a fairly simple example, might be eating lots of sweets or other kinds of junk food, because that distracts you from experiencing your feelings. You don't feel your feelings, such as disappointment or overwhelm or sadness. Some of us have a tendency to work compulsively without taking a break, because of course you can't be lazy. You have to work. You can't ever be seen as unprepared. And the old one is, you can't go out and play until your work is done. That's all from the critical voice. Another one might be being afraid to speak up, being afraid to make waves, because of course, It's never okay to be unpleasant or rude or displease or disappoint other people.
So Lynn's doing a great job of mimicking the tone and the language of that critical voice. And some of you are probably recognizing it. Let's take a look at some characteristics. And as I go through these, just briefly check back on what you all wrote down in that first question and see if any of these are there, or even just think about yourself and see if any of these seem familiar to you. So one characteristic is called negativity bias. All that means is that the critical voice is much more likely to pick up on the negative things that are going on, the things that you're not feeling good about, or things you wish weren't happening, much more than the positive. And I know sometimes Amy, I forget what her number is. She has some number that she says something like it takes 5 positives to overrule a negative, or 20 positives. I don't know. Maybe she can put that in chat for the streaming.
10 is the usual number.
It's the 10. Okay, good. See, I just love having people to help me out when I have no idea what the correct number is. Oh, and I'm hearing 100 to 1. So now you got all kinds of, you have 3 versions. You can pick which one you like best. But the point is, critical voice has a bias for negativity. Catastrophizing, that is imagining the very worst case scenario, which, I mean, maybe could possibly happen once in 1,000 blue moons, but it probably isn't. But that's where we go. That's where the critical voice goes. And it makes you feel like that worst case scenario is very realistic. Black and white thinking is another one. So no middle ground. It's A or B. It's this or that. There are 2 choices. That's it. There's no nuance. There's no gray area. There's no compromise. It's this or that. Overgeneralizing. And you'll know when that's happening because you'll hear the words always and never. You never take out the kitchen garbage. You never tell me where you're going. These are things I heard from a client earlier today. It's on my mind, right? But we say that to ourselves, oh, I always screw up. I always mess things up. I never get it right. So always and negative, I mean, always and never, those are critical voice. That's critical voice language. It is very irrational. And we could spend hours talking about the irrational factor, but here's how you'll recognize it. And this has happened lots of times with students in class. They'll say, well, you know, I'm feeling really anxious about, for example, doing a medium reading. And I know like intellectually, there's nothing to be afraid of. I'm doing a reading maybe from my friend or somebody who's really supportive. I know intellectually there is no reason to be anxious or afraid, and still I'm having a panic attack. So we know, but we're still feeling. So there's a lot of irrationality that is driven by the critical voice. And then the last one, not the last, but the last of the few that we're sharing today. This one is super interesting, and it's a little explanation. It's called the non-linear view of time. So the linear view is that things that are in the past are in the past, and we're in the present, and then we move along in the future. So we have some sense that past is not the same as the present, is not the same as the future. But to the critical voice, all of those are right now. So for example, if you had a bad, and again, I'm just pulling from a client example. If you had an experience as an 8 or 9-year-old, you went up on stage and you forgot your lines and you froze. And it was absolutely humiliating because you were prepared, your friends were there, humiliating. So now, so you were 8 years old. Let's say that was 40 years ago. But today, here you are, you're in class, it's time to practice. and you just break out into a sweat. And you begin assuming as soon as you try to do that reading or speak in public, as the case may be, you're going to go blank. So you see how that worked? Everything it happened in the past. I'm panicking right now because I know in about 3 minutes, I'm going to go blank. So it collapses everything. And we are going to give you guys a chance to ask questions. So these characteristics don't occur in isolation. They really combine holistically, which is what makes you experience them as thoughts and feelings and behaviors. So for example, a little bit like what I was just saying, your critical voice, maybe it's different. Your critical voice imagines some dire event in the future. Hasn't happened, but it sure is going to happen. So that's catastrophizing, right? Worst case scenario. But then it makes you feel like that future horrible thing is happening right in this minute. So that's that non-linear view of time. Past the future, it's all right now. And then it makes you feel it must always happen. And what do we just say about the word always? Overgeneralizing. So you see how in just one, we could maybe use the word trigger or, emotional experience in just, a couple of minutes, look at everything that is happening holistically, all at the same time. And it all rolls up into you feeling low confidence or panicked or afraid, or just simply, I'm not good enough and I need to get out of here. Lynn, do you want to add anything before we move on about any of this?
No, I think you're doing a beautiful job of illustrating how the critical voice works. And the fact that, as this slide points out, that these characteristics do not happen in isolation. That in one simple example or incident, you can find many different aspects of critical voice.
Which in this very moment, I'm thinking maybe that's one of the reasons why some of our typical strategies don't work very well, because we might, for example, maybe we catch the fact that we're saying always, and maybe we have enough presence of mind to say, well, okay, that's not really true. It doesn't always happen, but that doesn't address all the other pieces of it. So maybe you feel a little itty bitty bit better, but you don't feel like completely fine. And to use those wonderful words that people were putting in there, free and peaceful and energized and alive, right? So probably by now you're in strong agreement that you do not want to be controlled by your critical voice. So what do you need to do? So if what we're talking about is resonating with you, you can free yourself from these kinds of blocks and from the resistance that is holding you back. Now, a tricky thing is that your critical voice will actually tell you that it's not possible. So that comes across as an experience of doubt or skepticism. Now, skepticism, a certain amount of skepticism is healthy. So we're not saying that you should believe everything you hear without any discernment. However, it is helpful to know that one of the critical voices moves is to create that kind of that doubt. So one place we do see that is in mediumship. And we have students come into class, and even though they've had real experiences, signs with their loved ones, communication, maybe they've done some practice readings, but they'll come into class and say, I don't know, I think it's my imagination. So that right there is the critical voice, because you just had 10, 20 experiences. And yet right now you're saying, oh, it's my imagination. So the other thing about it is that your critical voice is hope phobic. And Lynn may talk about that a little bit more later on. But basically what that means is critical voice doesn't want you to feel hope. Because why? Think about it. If you feel hopeful, what could happen? You might not get what you hoped for. And that would be what? Disappointing, maybe devastating. Who wants to feel disappointed, devastated? Nobody does. So, okay, I won't hope. If I don't hope, I couldn't be disappointed. So that's, remember Lynn said it's a protector. So being hope phobic is protecting you from possible future disappointment that really hasn't even happened yet. So all of that said, you really can transform yourself. So there are lots of things that you can do, and you may be doing some of these already. The number one thing you can do from now, in fact, we've already started it here together, is increasing your self-awareness. So based on what we've shared with you today, get to know your critical voice inside and out. So we're giving you lots of great examples, but your critical voice will have its own idiosyncrasies. So, maybe my critical voice says, you can't, the one that Lynn used was great. You can't play until all your work is done. Somebody else's critical voice might say, you don't deserve to play, right? So the language, the feelings will vary. So you need to know yours. You need to know yours. You can read books. We'll show you at the end. Lynn has a terrific book that actually we use as our textbook called Healing Everyday Traumas. And that she breaks down the critical voice. She breaks down the method that we teach. So if you're having curiosity, the great place to start is to get her book. And I'll show you at the end the title. Actually, let's see. Oh, Amy's in YouTube, so she can't do comments. Oh, I didn't think about that. Okay, well, anyway, you can go to karjala.com/books. We'll show you that at the end. You can do guided meditations. You can use lots of self-help resources. Here's the thing that we said. The critical voice really is very tricky, and it doesn't want you to control it. And again, why would that be? Because it thinks it's protecting you. So if you control it, now it's not protecting you, it's not doing its job, and it's going to have a meltdown. So if you try to tackle it only by yourself, there's a good chance that it will sabotage at least some of your efforts. It will make you forget to read the book, for example. It will make you start daydreaming in the middle of a meditation. It'll tell you, oh, well, you could read the book tomorrow. You don't have to do it today. It'll be there. It's very tricky and slippery, and it has numerous ways of you not realizing what's going on. Amy put it in our chat. Excellent. Karjala.com books. Thank you, Amy. She's on 2 systems today. So what we would, of course, love for you to do is consider joining our group coaching experience. You can think of us as the critical voice whisperers, and we create a very safe and supportive environment. Lynn and I both have, me as a coach, Lynn as a psychologist, we have years of training in creating safety for people, whether it's one-on-one or whether it's in a small group. And we know that to do these kinds of things, to look at yourself, to do these kinds of explorations, you need to feel safe. So we call the method clear, create, transform. And as you can see, what are we doing? We're clearing internal blocks, limiting beliefs, and negative feelings. What are we creating? Because this method isn't clearing only. We talk a lot about clearing, but the other half is creating. In fact, Lynn, why don't because I'm talking a lot and I would love to have you talking. Why don't you talk about what we're creating and the transformation? Because you've actually seen it many, many more years than I have.
Yes, in the method that we use and in the method that we drew from, that we both learned from, clearing a problem is really only half. It's great, if it's something like smoking cessation, okay, fine, that in itself is a good thing to have. But a lot of times when you're dealing with a negative feeling or an old belief, you can clear that down to 0, but then there's just sort of an empty space. The other half of the process is instead instilling a positive, strong, empowering alternative to the old stuff. So we help create authentic trust in yourself. We help you develop what you want as empowering beliefs that you can then take in and own. And what this does is open up new possibilities and new opportunities. So in that transformation, in this process of clearing out the negative and replacing it with the positive, we turn self-doubt into self-confidence, or I should say, you turn self-doubt into self-confidence. You can turn fear into trust of yourself. You can turn self-criticism and all of that negative self-talk into self-support. And you can turn feelings like shame and guilt into feelings of self-love and self-support and resilience. So one of the things that is different, I think, about our system is that it works not just on the immediate thought of a negative belief. It actually works on removing these blocks to success and happiness and joy and ease and freedom by getting at the roots of them. So that what we're aiming to do is to create permanent positive change. In our group, we do this in 5 sessions, and we limit the group to just 12 participants so that we really can do hands-on coaching. And what we're teaching is a unique mind-body energy field process that permanently clears these blocks that have been created by your critical voice. The result is that you will feel freer. You will feel more of the wonder and awe. You'll feel lighter and more empowered. You'll spend less time feeling bad and more time feeling confident and in control. And the best part of this is that this is not something we do to you or for you. This is something you learn to do for yourself. So you will be able to do this on your own. You'll have what you need to clear blocks and create positive alternatives for yourself going forward in the future.
So Lynn, I'll jump back in for a moment. And guys, we'll take some questions in a few moments. Amy was suggesting that the YouTube audience has some questions. So I think what we'll do is we'll take a few questions, but then we'll still have Lynn show you guys this energy technique. So just quickly, she's telling me no. I guess I misunderstood. Communicating over text can be a little bit tricky. All right, guys. So I'm not going to read everything on here, but I'm going to let you take a look. The main thing for you to know is that this particular method is combining principles and practices from modern psychology. And you can see a list of them there. You may even recognize some of those if you've had therapy. Some of those may be familiar to you. But we're taking those plus, in the yellow box, techniques that are based on ancient wisdom traditions. And you might, some of these you may also recognize depending on your forays into energy medicine or energy work. So for example, chakra clearing or basic acupressure, which is often referred to as tapping, you may have experienced these in other settings, but what this method does is it puts these two together. And in particular, we do a bunch of things that prepare your mind-body system to actually get the most out of a chakra clearing or a tapping, so that when we clear it, we really clear it. And we measure our before and our after, using our own sense. How intense is it now? How intense before and after? And then, of course, we use these things for instilling the positive alternatives. So it's the combination of these things that creates that permanent change. So just a few quick details, and then we do have a question. I kind of have whiplash tonight with the questions and no questions. Here's the details, guys. So only 12 participants, and we're starting on April 6th, which is not this Saturday, but the next Saturday. So if you're interested, there is an application form. If you're in one of our courses and I know you already, or Amy knows you already, you don't have to apply. If we don't know you, please, it takes a few minutes. And that is just for us to make sure that what you're wanting to get out of it is what we provide. It's not, we're not evaluating you. We're looking at what you're hoping to accomplish. All right. So let me stop this for a moment. And what we can do for some questions is, for the people on Zoom, you can put them in the chat box and I'll pick them up from there. And I've got a question that I am going to read to you. I want to make sure everybody is on mute just for the sound. So this question is from Tiffany. And Lynn, this will be for you. Is it normal for the critical voice to go into overdrive after the unexpected loss of a loved one? What a good question.
That's a fantastic question. And yes, the critical voice has a major, major impact on grief. And it complicates the process tremendously. One very common critical voice aspect of grief is guilt. Is I didn't do everything I could have, or I should have done this, or I didn't do that right, or I didn't say everything I wanted to say, or just all of these things, which are all irrational, or at least have an irrational component to them. That's all coming out of the critical voice. So yes, it has a very great impact. And then it does things like, I'll never get over this. That's a critical voice belief, because the fact is that you can actually recover from the depths of grief. You can recover from trauma. You don't forget it, and you certainly don't lose the sadness and missing someone. And you can clear out what the critical voice is doing to make it worse.
I've seen in some sessions that I've done with developing mediums, some one-on-one sessions, things like, I'm afraid. So recognizing that the person you're reading for is probably in grief or has some level of grief. The developing medium is afraid they're going to make it worse. They're going to harm them or make it worse. And with one person that I worked with, that actually traced back to exactly what Lynn was talking about, where she felt that she hadn't done the right things that ultimately led to the passing of a loved one. So all of these things can really end up sort of all joining together, and the impacts, spreading out through in the things that we're trying to do in the present day. Any other questions?
Actually, if I can add one more thing to that, because there's another critical voice lie that can really impact grief. And that's the one that goes, if I don't feel this kind of pain anymore, it means I didn't love him or her. Absolutely false. Completely false. That is critical voice BS.
Yep.
But it's immensely painful when we hold on to that kind of belief.
Other questions that might be on your mind? One question that I'll throw out, because somebody may have it in their mind, is, and I see one's coming in from Amy. And here's what, I'd rather use your questions than mine. So let's say, Karen says, I never catastrophized about anything, but since my husband died unexpectedly, I now catastrophize about everything. Can you turn that around?
Yes. Yes, you can. Your critical voice has probably always been there. Catastrophizing may not have been one of your critical voice's major techniques, but I'm willing to bet that it was there in other ways. And one of the things that we find in trauma work is that new trauma re-energizes old trauma. So oftentimes, if there's a bunch of stuff in the past that we haven't worked through, we've done, I'll have people come into my office and say, well, I resolved that. And a dear friend and colleague of mine is fond of replying, well, if you resolved that, why are you here in my office? Because in fact, we don't resolve things, we stuff them. And the critical voice will use all of that from the past. So, yes, the fact that all of a sudden something flares up like that, that's not strange at all. That's more common than you would think. And yes, that can be healed. That can be changed.
One of the things I've learned from Lynn also is the role of shock. And I mentioned it because Karen said her husband passed unexpectedly.
Right.
So that, the fact of something happening out of the blue, you didn't see it coming, the critical voice can jump onto that fact as well.
Mm-hmm.
And all kinds of things can happen as well. So I know we don't have time too much to talk about that now, but it is something that that the fact of the shock, the initial shock of the thing happening itself, is something that can be a critical voice block. Right. Lynn, why don't we show them this mind body technique? I know we're over, guys. Anybody who has to leave, I know we set this for 45 minutes and then I quickly realized it should have been 60. Anybody who needs to drop off, we completely understand, no worries. And if you can stay, this will take about, I don't know, 8 minutes or so. And Lynn will walk you through this. It is a terrific, well, I'll let her tell you about it. In fact, I think we have a slide or two. Let's put that up. Yeah, I'm ahead of myself here. All right, there you go, Lynn.
Yeah, we had been thinking about doing this before, but I'm glad we got to the questions because those were very important.
Yeah.
So what I want to offer you is a very simple but very powerful mind-body technique that can help you center. It can help you. It can help you feel more centered. It can help you feel more balanced, more clear-headed, and it can help you let go of stress. And I think I just said it was on that slide. The other thing that's on this slide is that you can actually do this as many times a day as you like. There are no negative side effects, so you can do it absolutely whenever. I will say I recommend doing it for like about 1.5 to 2 minutes. But as you practice with it, you'll get a feeling for when it's accomplished what you wanted to accomplish. So the first thing I'm going to ask you to do, and we're going to do it to both sides. So I'm going to ask you to put your arms out like, I like to say, put your arms out like Superman, straight in front of you. Put the backs of your hands together. Put your right wrist over your left. Now lace your fingers. And now bring your hands up onto your chest. Notice that your left wrist is on top. So now I want you to cross your left ankle over your right. So left wrist and left ankle are both on top. And now we're going to sit like this for about a minute. And I want you to remember to breathe. And as you do, I want you to breathe in through your nose and touch the tongue to the roof of your mouth behind your upper teeth, like that. And when you blow out, when you breathe out through your mouth, touching your tongue behind your lower teeth. So let's just sit like this for about a minute. Okay, so gently unwind. And now let's do it to the other side. So again, arms out front, backs of hands together. This time, left wrist over right. Lace your fingers and then bring your arms up. So notice now your right wrist is on top. So put your right ankle over your left. And now we're going to breathe in the same way that we did before, breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth in a nice, slow, controlled way. Okay. And when you're ready, again, just gently unwind and come on back.
If you like, check into how you're feeling now compared to a few minutes ago. And if you feel like it, put a word or two in chat. And I'll also say, because if you're ever in any of our classes, you'll hear this all the time. We make just as much room for people to say that something did not work for them as it did. We're never fishing for compliments. And it's, in fact, there was a question, about how do we work in a group? Well, in fact, we just had this the other day where people were sharing some positive things. And one person said, I'm not quite ready to share my positive thoughts. I need to think about this. And it was absolutely fine for her to say that. For us, if something didn't work, like, okay, then let's figure out what will work. So Andrea feels more relaxed, and Sammy feels taller. Sammy, how tall are you anyway? Are you itty bitty? Janice feels more relaxed too, calmer. Yeah, that's what this usually does for people. You can use it anytime. You can't hurt yourself. So if you have any other questions, now's a good time to put them in chat because we'll wrap up soon. But one of the reasons that Lynn and I created the group coaching is that it's a more efficient and affordable way for you to learn the components. Because if you, like what she just walked you through, that's a piece that we use in the process. And that took whatever, 5 or 10 minutes, that's one piece. So when you're working individually, we still have to teach you the pieces. So this is a way of like, get all of your learning. You can do it for yourself. And then if you still want to have an individual session with Lynn or with me, great. We'll jump in and we'll quickly go right into the thing and go through the method with you. So that was really our intent when we put this together. It is 5 weeks. It's 2 hours each meeting. I think we're skipping one in there or made it into an optional Q&A. So it would be a total of 6 weeks, but 5 instructional meetings. Mary is feeling calmer, wider, and more open. Lovely. And yeah, and Karen is calmer too. Go ahead, Lynn.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think Nancy may have put this in the chat as well. One of the advantages actually of doing this as a group is that you get to hear from other people. So, and you never have to speak up. You don't have to share, and there is absolutely no pressure to share your thoughts. And it gives you the opportunity to hear what other people are thinking and feeling. So, you know, someone else might come up with a thought about something, and your response is, "Oh, wow, yeah, that fits me too, and I hadn't even thought about that one." So it really is a wonderful opportunity to share and to experience things from the other people in the group.
Just the other day, one of the people in the group that we just wrapped with, she had a question, and she said, "I'm sorry, I feel like I'm always the problem child," and then she asked some really good question. And this was an example where I could say really sweetly to her, "Hey, that was your critical voice
Problem
saying
child.
you're a problem child." Yeah, we didn't say you're a problem child. You know, we're not thinking that. Your critical voice is making you feel like you're a problem child. So we all had a good laugh about it, you know, laughing together, not laughing at. Mary Stevens asks if we're giving the class again in the near future. We are. I think the start date is May 31st. It will be on Fridays. The next one is Saturdays. The other one is Fridays, 12 to 2. It will be outside of Home Medium Academy, but that is fine. Anybody can join. And it's going to be built around, it's going to be the same, but built around the specific topic of imposter syndrome, as many people, especially women, relate to that. So there'll be a little bit of extra teaching about imposter syndrome, and more of the examples will be about imposter syndrome than, for example, mediumship or intuition. But it doesn't really matter. You can come to any group that works for you time-wise or calendar-wise. So yeah, any other questions? And while you may be thinking of any last questions, I do want to thank all of the folks on YouTube that Amy's been hanging out with. Usually I'm the one that hangs out there, and Amy's the one who's here. So we kind of switched it up this time. I have to admit, it feels a little strange to me that I can't see those YouTubers. We had at least 37 people at one point, it looks like. So thanks to them. Thanks to all of you. Lynn and I will stay on just for a few minutes, in part because there's a time lag to YouTube, but also just in case anyone wants to stay back and ask a question. We can certainly have you, you know, you're on video, we can unmute you and have you speak. But officially speaking, we're closing tonight, and I'll just put up for a few minutes our last slide here. And I do want to thank all of you. Here's Lynn's book. It's highly recommended. As Amy says, it's the #1 book that she recommends to her clients. It will give you a great feel for what you'll get in the coaching. You can see the website, Home Medium Academy, and you can also just email me directly, and I'll be happy to either answer a question or tell you more, jump on the phone, or whatever it may be. And with that, have a wonderful, wonderful evening. All the familiar faces. Gina, you got the book. Great. Familiar faces. I know I'll see some of you very soon. YouTube, thank you. And again, Lynn and I will stay back for a few minutes. So good night, everybody.
Hello?
Yeah. Hey, Mary. Hey, Mary.
Just a quick question about private sessions, like if you can't take the class, or if you want to do some private sessions, how does that work?
So yeah, how it works, you can work with Lynn or with me. And one thing that we always make sure people know is that between Lynn and me, we have no ego about somebody picking Lynn or picking me. And so, of course, you and I, Mary, know each other a little bit. And if you felt like Lynn was the person to work with, there would be zero hard feelings. So I want to make sure that you know that. So essentially, you would reach out to whichever person that you felt like you wanted to work with. We have a package of 3 sessions. So it's the first is 90 minutes, and that's because we need to learn about your critical voice and what you're wanting to accomplish. And again, there's some teaching that goes on. So the first is 90 minutes. Then the next 2 are 60 minutes each. And that package is $750. And then if additional sessions are desired or needed, they're $225 for another 60 minutes. And so typically, in terms of thinking about the scope of it, that three session package would be to work with one critical voice block, one main block. Sometimes blocks can have some arms and legs. However, you do also learn the method with us individually, but you're not having the PowerPoints and the PDFs, although we could certainly give you those if we thought it would be supportive. But that's the difference. And we both, we usually have availability to start within a couple of weeks, typically. Is that fair, Lynn, for you? Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, great question. Thanks for asking. I don't know if we've got a couple of other people still on. I don't know if you all have questions or if you're just hanging out, but we're going to close out in just a minute. So somebody wants me to confirm my speaking language. There's so many. Oh, that's on YouTube. I'm probably supposed to stop the YouTube. Of course, I have no idea how to do that. All right, we're going to close out this meeting. Lynn, we can come back on with it on your link. I'll see you in a minute.
Good night, everybody. Thanks so much for coming.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.